Hey everybody, Douglas Blair Roberts here, the Super Vader 400, and of course the brown skinned human, coming back at you with another video. And as you can see by the title above, this is the intro video for 4 to 5 different videos I'm going to be doing. In each of these videos right here, I'm going to be talking about my all-time favorite films from various decades, starting with the 2010s, then the 2000s, then the 90s, then the 70s and 80s, and I may go back in time to the other decades. I haven't decided yet, but I mostly decided to stick with the modern day decades because I'm more familiar with those decades, especially the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. I'm going to do my favorite and best movies from those decades and my worst and least favorite movies from those decades. This was inspired by Double Toasted and me wanted me to do other favorite movies type of lists because my first one was real good. It started off real good, but towards the end just got terrible. And as you can notice, and as you can see, if you've seen it on my channel, the link will be in the description box below. Towards the end, you don't see a lot of pictures because I just got bored with the video at the end because the video went on way too long. A common problem I have when I do these best lists, I can never get the time limit I want. I always go over the limit. So that's why I've been trying to do several different categories for favorite movies and my top 30, 35, 40 best movies will also, this is the intro to that video as well. And of course, I'm from now on going to use one, instead of recording several intros, I'm going to use one intro for a series of videos. So with that being said, let's get started right now. This is my world, and I don't care what you think. All right, number one and two on my favorite movies of the 2010s of the past decades list are the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DC Extended Universe. Before I get started, I'm going to start off with the Marvel Cinematic Universe first. But before I get started with that, both of these films, in my opinion, are some of the best, greatest, and most epic summer blockbuster movies of all time. And in my opinion, these two big budget movie franchises rule the Hollywood blockbuster scene. And it's because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we are in what is now called the superhero renaissance. And this greatest movie ever, the Marvel Cinematic Universe started it all. Since then, multiple studios, multiple films have been stepping up their game to put out the best film ever. So, like I said, with that being said, let's start off with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And my all time favorite MCU films are Avengers 2012, Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Endgame, Thor 2011, The Dark World, Ragnarok, Doctor Strange 2016, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, Civil War, Ant-Man 2015, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Iron Man 2008, the very first one, Spider-Man Homecoming, an awesome reboot of Spider-Man, and the greatest Spider-Man film of all time, Far From Home. In my opinion, also one of the greatest Spider-Man things in the entire Spider-Man and Marvel franchise. So yeah, that was the number one is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and all of the awesome films on this list are because of the awesomeness that was the Marvel Cinematic Universe when they started in 2012 with that very epic Avengers 2012 movie, and from there on in, it's been nothing but good movies. They've stepped up their game each and every time. There's been some duds and disappointments there, but yeah, these are, in my opinion, my best and favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe. As you can probably tell, a couple were left out for various reasons. Number two, the DC Extended Universe, all of them. Aquaman 2018, Shazam, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Wonder Woman 2017, Suicide Squad 2016, Justice League 2017, and The Man of Steel. Aquaman and Shazam, and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice are the best, or are the best and most exciting DCEU films. Wonder Woman 2017 was the first successful DCEU film, the first to hit it out the park, and the first major film starring a woman. Suicide Squad 2016 was, in my opinion, alongside Shazam, the most exciting and the most funnest DCEU film. Shazam, and Suicide Squad 2016 was a better Justice League than the actual Justice League 2017 film. But still, Justice League 2017, while being one of the biggest disappointments of 2017, is still one of the best films of 2017, and I consider it a great comic book movie. The problem is it's just forgettable, but I think it's underrated and overhated when there's way so much stuff. But the Justice League was a for the most part a good movie with a couple of problems there, mainly in the screenplay and the villain. I keep mentioning in every Justice League review the Steppenwolf's plan. Then you have, last but not least, before I get to Man of Steel, let's go back to Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I thought this was the this was the start of the road to the Justice League. The road to the Justice League was road and journey to Justice League was better than the actual Justice League movie. This film was awesome right here. Batman and Superman in the same film for the first time ever. There have been various comic books and cartoons where they've come together, but never in film. And boy, was it awesome. Then the Trinity battle at the end, where Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, mostly Superman and Wonder Woman, fighting Doomsday, and the iconic Trinity scene. Then, of course, before that, you had Batman say in the Save Martha scene, going beast mode on those mobsters, including burning one of them. Then, yeah, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and the Ultimate Edition version is even better than the heavily flawed and lacking theatrical version. Then The final film on this list, on this part of the list, was Man of Steel. Man of Steel is last on this list because it was, at the time when I saw it, I have more appreciation for the film now than I did when I saw it back in 2013. This film was just another Superman, for the most part, was just another Superman film, but I like how they stepped it up with the action, with the um, with the action, since this was a more modern Superman, and that was DC's goal, to get more younger viewers interested in the Superman, to make a edgy act, to make a edgy sci-fi disaster action type movie, which is what they made here, and it was straight up intense anime style, and one of the greatest films ever. I didn't have much appreciation for it because I wanted the Green Lantern 2011 to start the DCEU, but instead Man of Steel did. But now that we're getting a better Green Lantern sometime in the future, I'm okay with the Man of Steel starting it. But this was an awesome start to the DCEU. It's kind of which is that's is last because in my opinion it's kind of weak compared to all the other stuff which haven't been seen before. As awesome as this movie was, it was still just another Superman film. Number three is the Japanese import Bleach 2018. Been waiting for this film since 2010 or 12. I can't remember which year it was actually announced, but I've been waiting for this film forever. And finally, in 2018, when it hit Netflix, I got to see it. And this right here was, one of my opinion, one of my best films of 2018. I was more excited for this than I was Infinity War that year, and it was one of the best films of this year and an awesome birthday present. Bleach 2018, and also putting the naysayers wrong, saying that you can't do anime in live action. This film did. This film was for the most part an exact replica of the Japanese anime. The Japanese anime. Only problem I had was the female actors. They were bland and lacking in comparison to the bubbly, wildly personalities of their anime counterparts. But yeah, Bleach 2018. Number four is what I consider to be one of the best kids movies. Number four and five are, let's start off with number four. Number four is what I consider to be one of the best kids movies of all time, and I can't wait for the sequel. And as you can see by the picture here, Trolls 2016. This film, in my opinion, right here is everything the live action Smurfs movie should have been. This, of course, is based on the legendary Trolls franchise from the, was it the 60s, 70s, or 80s? I can't remember where the troll dolls actually showed up, but that's what this franchise is based on. But it's vastly similar to the Hanna-Barbera's and Ruby Spears' Smurfs cartoon, and of course the Shrek movie from the early 2000s, because it's DreamWorks. It's DreamWorks, and like I said, I saw this film by accident. I've actually missed this film during its initial airing back in 2016. I saw it in late 2017 on Netflix at a friend of mine's house, and I've been a huge fan ever since. I've watched everything from it, from the Trolls, the Beats Goes On sequel television series, the 2017, I think it was it a, yeah, the Christmas special, and I can't wait for Trolls I keep forgetting what it's called, what the sequel is called, but it's coming out this year, and I can't wait. It looks awesome. But Trolls, one of the greatest kids movies ever, and it was awesome seeing the mainstream return of Justin Timberlake, who voices one of the main characters, Branch, and his song "Can't Stop the Feeling" is featured in this film. So yeah, number five, another awesome kids movie that I wanted to see in 2017 but just never got around to seeing it, and that was Captain Underpants. Also one of the greatest kids films of all time. This was one of my favorite childhood books, and I was finally happy to see that it was a movie. Disappointed that it's only a one one film movie and a sequel unrelated television series. But Captain Underpants, hilarious and hilarious. And before I get to the next one, Kevin Hart, who I really don't find that much funny, I find him awesome in animation. And one of his funniest roles, playing the character of George in this film. He is way better in animation than he is in live action. He is way funnier in animation than he is live action. Number six, the other 2012 box office smash hit besides Avengers was Wreck-It Ralph, the Disney animated film, and boy, was it an awesome Disney animated film, a film centered around video games where classic characters like Ryu, Ken, Sonic the Hedgehog, M. Bison, Zangief, a character that looks like Kano from Mortal Kombat, and Neff from the main antagonist of the Altered Beast game. All of these classic video game characters and video game villains clashing in one film. I've never seen the sequel, but the first film from 2012 was awesome and one of the best kids movies ever and one of the best Disney films in a long time, because prior to seeing this, Disney in my opinion had a bunch of stinkers, which is why I kind of stayed away from their films and stayed away from their anime films until I saw this film right here. Number seven is TMNT is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, TMNT 2014, and its sequel, Out of the Shadows. TMNT 2014, in my opinion, was a great start to what could have been a good franchise, but it focused way too much on the human characters than the turtles, which was everyone's biggest problem with the film. Then yet Out of the Shadows, which a lot of people consider to be much better, and Out of the Shadows is one of the best Ninja Turtles and Ninja Turtles things possible in the franchise. It had it all: Baxter Stockman, Krang, Bebop and Rocksteady, and Shredder looking more closer to his animated counterpart. Not to mention Stephen Amell as Casey. But despite all that, it grossed less than the second one. It grossed less than the first one, and as such, the franchise was canceled. But I consider both of these to be an awesome reboot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And if the reboot is nothing like these, I definitely will not be watching the TMT reboot, because I think these are the two greatest Ninja Turtles movies of all time, and not just the greatest Ninja Turtles movies, but the greatest Ninja Turtles related media period in the franchise. In my opinion, this is the only Ninja Turtles that are worthy of being called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the franchise. I call all the other ones Teenage Human Ninja Turtles because there's nothing mutant about them. Everything they do is human based. Number 8 is one of my all-time favorite films from 2010, the critically panned Green Lantern 2011. This right here was a comic book and was the Green Lantern come to life. I went into this film with low expectations. I went into it mainly because I was a huge fan of Green Lantern. I did not think Ryan Reynolds could pull off Hal Jordan, a character known for Ryan Reynolds, an actor known for doing comedy stuff. I didn't think he could pull off the super serious Hal Jordan, and boy did he. And I'm surprised a film about intergalactic diarrhea, what critics say, intergalactic diarrhea, and Hector Hammond, a guy, telepath with a huge brain, with a huge brain-like tumor. With I think a film centered around those things would be good, and it was. The special effects, the CGI, the action, the Green Lantern was coming to life on the screen. It's one of the greatest comic book movies, in my opinion, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. Also the most underrated. Gets a lot of unneeded hate, man. Number 9 is X-Men Apocalypse. Not the best movie ever, and damn sure not the best comic book movie ever, but one of the better X-Men films in a long time. It it was a it was a good adaptation of the 80s of the 80s of the 80s and 2000s X-Men Evolution comic book and cartoons. And they finally got Apocalypse, Archangel, Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey into a movie. the actors portraying them, well, the actors for Jean Grey and Cyclops were not the best, but they were good. They were good. So yeah, that was X-Men Apocalypse. Number 10 is The King of Fighters 2010, another Asian import. This was developed in this was released in China first, China and Asia first. Then it came here to America in 2010, and this straight to video, straight to DVD film. I was more excited for this than the various big budget movies that happened that year in The King of Fighters. While being vastly different from its source material, I thought this was a very cool take on the King of Fighters franchise. Like the actors said in the trailers for this film, the film is like a sci-fi version of Fight Club and Mortal Kombat. The characters the characters in the film, they have their own daily lives, their own daily jobs, and but they use this Bluetooth technology to go into this alternate dimension called the King of Fighters tournament, and they transform into video comic book based characters, the characters from the namesake characters from the video game, and they have to stop Rugal, who wants to unite all, who also enters the tournaments, begins breaking the rules by killing people and trying to find these three items to use to bridge the King of Fighters world and the real world together. It's just an awesome sci-fi film that I thought got a bad rep because how vastly different it was from its video game. To this day, still gets a bad rep because how vastly different it was from its video game. But I thought this was an awesome product alongside its video game. 11 is another video game based movie, Tekken. Not the best martial arts film ever, but a pretty good, awesome video game adaptation. And despite the fact that the creator of Tekken didn't like this film, I thought they did a good job adapting. I thought they did a good job capturing the spirit of his work. They didn't do that good of a job adapting it. There were so many missing characters and so many things wrong, but still a pretty good film. 2000. The next film, 12, is, as you can see by the picture here, the critical success but box office failure, Dread 2011. In 2012, this was the other awesome film that came out that year, Dread 2012, the reboot. This film, unlike its 1995 counterpart, was closer to the comic books, much more serious, and just much more modern, just a better take on Dread 2011. I still enjoy the '95 film more, but this was an awesome take, and it sucks that it happened. It happened so late. Judge Dredd should have been in the 2000s, not the 2010s, and I think that's why it failed. While people definitely want to see a better take on Judge Dredd, I don't think people cared when it finally came out, and that's why it flopped in theaters, despite how awesome it was. 13, 13 is the Twilight movies. Twilight Eclipse, one of the most exciting Twilight films of all time. Most people, even haters of Twilight, agree that was the most exciting. It was also the most creepiest and scary. The beginning of the film played out like a horror film. Then that epic war at the end. Then the next film in the list, Breaking Dawn. Breaking Dawn, which this altered for the sake of an adaptation in it, because they wanted to have a climax. This altered it. It was like the X-Men movie. It was like vampires meet the X-Men movies. They had that huge battle at the end where the character of I've already forgotten her name, where she saves where the one who can see into the future actually saves, pretty much saves the day, because it had they all at the Cullens and the Motori kept fighting, kept Volturi kept fighting, everyone would have died. There would have been no survivors. 14, 14, the critically panned and box office disappointment. I Frankenstein. I thought this was um, Aaron Eckhart's best role and one of the coolest takes on Frankenstein ever. It got hated by a lot of fans because people think it was based on the Marv Shelley novel from the 1800s, but it's not. It's based on a comic book. 15 is another Halloween comic book style film, and that was Dracula Untold. I love the Twilight series, but it was great to try to get back to what the vampires and what vampires and Dracula really was with this awesome, unique tale on Vlad the Impaler, Dracula's earlier life before he became Dracula. Dracula, and was my opinion was despite its low box office numbers and its um, average to negative critical reception was one of the best films of 2014. 16 is the Transformers movies. Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, one of the best Transformers movies to date, in my opinion. Then its sequel, which was even better, Transformers: The Last Night, which had the cool Mad Max medieval setting. Medieval setting. Then you had Age of Extinction, which was the most action oriented and the most violent and the best CGI looking Transformers. Then you had Transformers: Dark of the Moon, which in my opinion not as good as 4 and 5, but completely redeemed itself from redeemed Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen. Too bad Revenge of the Fallen put such a horrible taste in people's mouths that people didn't care. People didn't care, and the hate that film got spilled over to this film right here. 17, um, The Predator 2018. Yes, I love The Predator 2018. Who knew that in 2018, in the age of the MC and DCEUs, you can still make a Predator movie entertaining. And this was a Marvel DC X-Men style of a Predator, which I actually enjoy because that made it vastly different from the very first Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The cast wasn't as manly and as macho as they were, but in my opinion, they were better actors and far more funnier than the cast from the previous Predator film. 18 is Tom Cruise's Edge of Tomorrow's. Tom Cruise's return to a major film in 2014, and this film right here was awesome. 19 is Pacific Rim, another awesome, cool robot kaiju movie, the modern day robot jocks. 20, Universal Soldier Regeneration 2010. 2010, the guy who played um, Jin in Tekken, John Fu. He was also in this film, and this was an awesome film. Great return of Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, and ML Fighter. Um, MMA fighter. I keep forgetting his name. Hold on, I can look it up. Hold on. Oh yeah, Andre Arlovsky. Yeah, that guy. So yeah, Andre Arlovsky. So yeah, awesome film. Lots of action, and briefly redeemed the Universal Soldier franchise. Universal briefly redeemed it. Too bad it was a straight to video release and came out just several years way too late. 21, another cool action film that was in 2013, G.I. Joe Retaliation. This film was more G.I. Joe than its prequel, Rise Rise of Cobra. Felt like I was watching a complete blueprint and live action reenactment of the cartoon. 22, Creed 2015. Creed 2015. I didn't like Rocky 6, and I thought Rocky 5 was a disappointment. This movie right here was not only not only redeemed the Rocky franchise, but this film right here, in my opinion, is one of the best in the Rocky franchise, alongside 3 and 4. Three, um, 3 and 4. This film was better story wise. It was much more modern, and in my opinion, one of the best reboots. One of the best reboots to come out recently, and was a way better reboot than the Star Wars Force Awakens, which also came out later on that year. 23 is the Naruto films. Naruto the last, which was the last of the original Naruto generation, and Boruto the movie, which focused on the continuation of the characters from the previous Naruto series and the new generation led by Boruto. And it was just an awesome, beautiful film. Unlike, my opinion, the Mortal Kombat video game series, this series right here did a transition from an old generation to a new generation right. 24. 24. Before we get to 24, let's do honorable mentions. Honorable mentions: The Hitman's Bodyguard, a great film starring a great buddy cop film starring Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson. 2, the Emoji Movie. I know everybody hates that movie, but I enjoyed it. I especially love the good vibes, the soundtrack, and the humor. And I thought the film was harmless, despite it being a corporate cash-in and one of Sony's better efforts. 3, um, 3 is X-Men Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past, widely considered one of the best X-Men films of all time. It was pretty good, but like I said, the entire middle part was boring. The beginning and end are awesome, but the entire middle part was boring, and it completely bastardized the comic book. It completely bastardized the comic book just to whore out Wolverine instead of Kitty or Bishop going back into the past like in the comics and cartoons. They use Wolverine, a fighter type mutant, instead, which means we get 2 hours of Wolverine just going back to the past to talk to people. Five, five is Deadpool. 5 is Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2 I thought was much better than his prequel Deadpool. More characters and everything, but it was just as stupid and just as cheesy and kind of crappy, just like the first one, which is why it's here in honorable mentions. RoboCop 2014. I thought this was an awesome reboot of RoboCop, but it was critically hated. It got a mixed reception from critics, but was critically hated by fans of the original RoboCop. And they're gonna be reboot again. So kind of making this reboot right here pointless. That's why it's here in honorable mention. 7, Ghost Rider 2: Spirit of Vengeance. I thought this was an awesome sequel to the first film. This was a much better Ghost Rider than his first one, even though I think the first one, Ghost Rider, was probably a much better movie. The first one from the 2000s. 8, The Wolfman 2010. Awesome reboot of The Wolfman, but didn't make much of an impact. But this film was also one of the scariest films I've seen in the 2010s. 9 is another cool um horror action dark fantasy film, The Last Witch Hunter 2015, starring Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel pretty much cosplaying as Aaron Eckhardt's I Frankenstein, and Wesley Snipes' Blade trilogy from the late 90s, early to mid 2000s is what he portrays here. And last on my best movies of 2010s is, as you can see by the picture here, Dragon Ball Super Broly. It's last because it has a bunch of problems, and I went into it with low expectations, but came out loving it. But the fact that Broly is now canon in the Dragon Ball series is a huge plus, and made me, who quit the Dragon Ball franchise, made me return to the Dragon Ball franchise, Broly. So that was my best films of the 2010s, the 2010s. If you don't, best and favorite films of the 2010s. And by the way, once again, this was films I've seen. This was movies I've seen. There was a lot of 2010 films I haven't seen. So with that being said, I'm finished for now. If you don't want to hear the rest of the music, turn the video off right now.